Alright, so I'm going back to the origins of my channel and just making a unscripted rant about Pokemon. This time, the fairy type. It's a good type. Like if you look at the type chart, it's like, okay, those are good changes mostly. Like Dragon, needs something to counter it. Poison and Steel, offensive purpose. Fire really didn't need more resistances. And then there's the part where they punish Bug type for thinking it could ever be good. Back in Generation 5, just,
Know your fucking place, trash!
But mostly good. When they added Fairy type, they converted a bunch of old Pokemon to Fairy type. So like Clefairy, it's in the name. It's like a magical pink space alien that's basically a fairy, right? So like that's fine, Togepi. Snubble, I don't really know why Snubble is one, but okay. Like Togekiss, cool, it's not normal flight anymore. That typing is annoying. Get something new. Jigglypuff gets to keep normal type, I guess. Azumarill, yeah, it's like an Easter egg. That's like a fairy thing, like the Easter, a literal one, not like the video game thing. And then I don't even know what Mawile is, so sure. And then anyway, basically, though, there should be a lot more Pokemon that were made fairy type. I'm just gonna look at a list of all Pokemon if I can find one. I did not think to do that ahead of time. Okay, here it is. So I'm just gonna go through it. I'll cut out most of my scrolling, but just gonna look. Alright, so one thing about it though, I think a lot of them are gonna be psychic types, because to start, psychic was kind of the mystical magical type, and then fairy is in that role now. So, okay, first one already, Ninetales. Alone in Ninetales is fairy type, because it's like a magical kitsune. Ninetales is also that. I also thought Ninetales was psychic for a really long time, because there's an episode of the anime here where it does a bunch of kitsune magic stuff. They're on some kind of mysterious illusion. I don't remember it well, but it's more than just fire magic. So anyway. It's slightly weird that Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff are normal fairy, then Clefairy and Clefable are just fairy. But I don't know. I mean, it's not weird. It's because Jigglypuff's still like a pink blob of like fat, which is like a normal type thing, so that makes sense. Chansey could have been made fairy type, just like Clefairy and Jigglypuff. It's more like Jigglypuff than the others. Just like a pink healing magic, healing blob. But luckily, we've been spared the terror, the blight upon the world that would be fairy type Blissey. So that's good. Jinx probably could have been fairy type. It's ice psychic. I think, if I remember right, Jinx is supposed to be a Yuki-Onna, which is a Japanese thing. It's one of two Yuki-Onna Pokemon. They didn't do it well enough the first time, so they tried again. But that's like a fairy tale creature, mysterious woman in the snowstorm that like kills you. That's a fairy thing, not as much of a psychic thing. So it could have been one. I don't think this one needs to be. And then Mew. Mew could definitely be made fairy type, though the consequences then Mewtwo also needs to be, And Mewtwo is very well established as actually being psychic and not like a fairy, so that would be a problem. So that's probably why they had to keep just psychic for Mew, which I guess is okay. Okay, now this is the important one. Celebi is literally a magical forest spirit that does like weird mischievous things sometimes. The voice of the forest restores plants to perfect health and heals wounds and purify shadow Pokemon, and hides in it's a fairy. It is literally a fairy in every single way. This is the most fairy of any Pokemon. Like, look at the list of fairy-type Pokemon. Did any of these beat Celebi? No. No. I mean, maybe Xerneas. Maybe Xerneas is more fairy. Right? Nothing else. No other Pokemon is as fairy as Celebi. But they left it grass psychic. It's not even very psychic. What is it? What mental powers does it do? It's mystical magic. That's why it got psychic type, because I didn't have like anything better for it. But it's a fairy. It is literally. Let me Google search an image of a fairy, and it'll look like Celebi. Look, this is okay. That's here. Celebi. It's... Why isn't it a fairy type? I don't even know. Like, I don't even have any possible... I can't even imagine... Like, okay. Let's look at the Pokemon that changed. I think all of the Pokemon that changed used to be normal type. No, they added it to Mr. Mime. And Terralts. And Mawile. And Cottony. Okay. So the only I guess the only types that have been replaced by fairy were normal types before. But plenty of them got it added to an existing monotype. But, like, if it's some, like, they want it to not be confusing when you use the wrong, like, normal type to fairy is, like, less of a change or something. Like, I mean, Clefairy used to just be a weak normal type that didn't matter. That was, like, free... It was just, like, free practice for fighting types to just, like, beat up for fun. But now it's fairy type and just hard counters fighting type instead. So, like, that's not a minor change, right? Like, it's still... It's significantly different. And Psychic, kind of similar to Fairy, in my mind, because they both counter fighting the exact same way. Now, Dark is a completely different interaction, and Bug is a different interaction. But that's a similarity. Whereas Normal and Fairy literally don't have any shared interactions. So, like, it can't be that. I don't know, they just only replaced normal types in Pokemon when Celebi is literally a fairy. Again, it is the most fairy of any Pokemon that exists in the entire set of 900 Pokemon. And they didn't make it fairy type. You could not make, like, the plainest fairy, literally just a fairy Pokemon. This here, like, it's just a fairy? No, it's less of a fairy than Celebi. It is not as good of a fairy. None of the Pokemon are as good of a fairy as Celebi is. Anyway. I think you could also argue Altaria should be a fairy type. It is weird that Mega Altaria is Dragon Fairy, and regular Altaria is just Dragon Flying. I have not even found a definitive reason why Altaria is dragon type to begin with. I've done research, and I haven't found. The best answer I've found is the Draco constellation, which has a star named Till, and in Japanese the name is, Tiltalis. So it might be a reference to that star. So, I mean, it mega evolves and nothing really changes about it. Why does it lose flying? Does it stop flying? No. Why does it gain fairy? It's fluffier. More cloud, like a fluffy cloud. Is that a fairy thing? Maybe. What is it? More of a dragon? What's dragon about it? I still don't know. The best I found was somebody said it looks like a cockatrice. I don't know how to say it. So, and maybe. That's all I have. So, it could have been fairy flying. Maybe. I don't know. Notable is the Mega Evolution only came in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which is after they added the X and Y would have been when they would change it to fairy type. So if they added the Mega Evolution, then they wouldn't also change the type at the same time, because they added the evolution after they changed the types. But I don't know. They could have if they really wanted to. I don't it's not an excuse. I don't feel strongly about this, but Milotic could be fairy type. I don't know. Kind of like Primarina, which Primarina is the better version, but you could argue that for Milotic, maybe. It would have been fun to make a Love Disc fairy type, though. That would give it some kind of point, maybe, other than being the worst water type in the entire series. It's like Love's a fairy thing, maybe, sometimes. It is for Sylveon. Okay, and then Jirachi. Jirachi definitely could be made into a fairy type. It's kind of like all the like tiny mythical Pokemon have a possibility to become fairy type. Celebi is literally a fairy. Mew is like the kind of mystic magical thing that could be a fairy. Jirachi, it's like a tiny little thing that does magic, does like wild, crazy magic that's like more than just like a psychic type. It does like a wish. Ooh, that's a pretty fairy kind of thing. Jirachi can only grant 3 wishes. It's awakened by the Millennium Comet. And so the pretty fairy-like thing. Though it is also I don't see too much psychic in it. It's got apparently this true eye thing. I forgot about that. The eye of truth. If you're looking at the Pokedex entries, what will it say? Jirachi will awaken from its sleep of 1,000 years if you sing to it in a voice of purity. It is said to make true any wish that people desire. That's like a fairy tale thing. That's a very fairy-like, a bit like description. Is it psychic? No, that's not really psychic at all. So, I think Jirachi is in the probably list. I would put it above halfway in the should be fairy. Celebi's 100 absolute most fairy possible. Jirachi's halfway there. And then a few others are could be a fairy. The ones below that. This one I think this definitely I think would be better if it was a fairy type, because it's like mystical wish every 1,000 years. That's such a fairy thing. It's not very psychic as well. So Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf are the exception to what I was just saying about the tiny little psychic type mythical, or even mythical, I don't know. Whatever, those things, the little spritey things. Those ones are the exception to being fairy, because they are these ones are clearly designed to actually be psychic. they're like parts of the mind, the bringer of emotion. That's emotion. That's the psychic thing. Uxi's the knowledge. That's psychic. As of willpower. That's psychic. Could maybe be psychic fairy, but they don't need to be. Victini is psychic fairy. Why is it psychic? This is new. I'm just thinking about this right now as I'm looking at it. It's unscripted, as I said. Brings victory. Trains with Victini will always win. Brings victory. That's all it does. It's just kind of like a vague magical power, which is a bit more a fairy thing than a psychic thing. Again, apparently in one of the moves it can send visions to people. So maybe that's why it has to be psychic. But it's just like a tiny little thing that, like, yay, you will win. That's like a fairy thing to do, more than a psychic thing. So again, the tiny little psychic type should probably be fairy instead. Then we get to Audino. Audino is similar. It's pure normal type. The Mega Evolution becomes normal fairy, which it looks very fairy-like in the evolution. It looks pretty fairy-like in the normal form, at least a little bit. And then it's like, what is Audino? It's like a stethoscope doctor. It's like a replacement for Jinx, basically. But it's also it touches others, the feelers on its ears. Its auditory sense, feeling when eggs hatch. This isn't actually that much of a fairy type. But it's like a little bit. It like heals and is like nice and stuff. And that can be a fairy type thing sometimes. It's also pink and was normal type previously, so they can add fairy to it. It's not gonna, because that fits their standards. You have to be a normal type to become a fairy. If we look at like this chart of Pokemon per type, right? This is something I think about. It's a little bit old, but fairy types were introduced a while ago anyway, so this will be closer to it. Fairy, very rare, but like psychic, one of the most common types, the 5th most common. There's a lot of psychic types in like the first game. And so you can definitely just cut off some psychic types and move them to fairy. Like that is not going to be a problem. And normal types, right? There's a lot of those. Just cut those and move them to fairy, and that's not a problem at all. Switching one of those two would definitely help, because Whimsicott is the only fairy type in the 5th generation, the only one they switched over. So it could use another one. At least Audino would definitely help. I mean, Victini's a legendary, so a mythical even, so it would be very limited, but you can get another. And, 2 fairy types in the whole generation would be nice. And then, I have one last rant left. This motherfucker. Flabebe. Is that French enough? I don't know. Okay. Look at this thing. It's loading. Look at this thing. I'm gonna draw a diagram here. How much of this Pokemon is flower and how much of it is fairy. And then I will put the results on the screen. But more of this, the space of the looking at this Pokemon, is dedicated to flower than it is to the fairy. But it's pure fairy type, not grass, not fairy grass. Now you can say, if you're gonna be all nerd emoji about it, actually it's just a fairy holding a flower. All fairies have some association with nature, and so it's fine to hold one and still be a fairy type and not a grass type. And you would be very wrong from a design standpoint, because you shouldn't put this much of something into the picture of the fairy if it's not going to be that thing. You're using, it's more there's more flower on here than fairy. This is a design meant to confuse people if you're not going to make it a grass type. But that's true. It is just holding a flower. That's true of the evolution as well. Floette, it's bigger, the flower is the same size. So actually, there's less grass in that one. This one would be as confusing on its own. But then they did this. This is not a fairy holding a flower. This has merged into the flower. Its legs are not there anymore because they've been replaced with the stem of a flower. This should be fairy, and its head is covered in flower. Its eyebrow has turned green. Okay, its eyebrow is always green, actually. Just had to check to make sure of that out. So, okay. Okay. And I guess its legs were always... Wait. Okay, its legs were always green. But it's gained, like, extra leaves at its base. Its feet have grown leaves out of them. And its feet were always like its leg always ended in a leaf. It was always partially grass. The nerd emoji people were wrong. It was always partially a plant. It just got even more of a plant later on. So, yeah, I'm mad about this one. This is like a fairy grass. This is a grass type. Look at it. I'm gonna do another analysis. I'm getting out my own nerd emoji glasses. No, this is my own detailed technical analysis. I'm gonna input techno, like, computer noises here. Computer, and analyze the portion of grass to fairy on all of these Pokemon, and then it's gonna zoom in and tell you the, like, 83.444% grass, and I'll be proven right then. This is a fairy grass type. Come on, why? It's literally got a head surrounded by flowers. Okay, I think that's all. I think that was all I needed to say. That was my my rant I had planned here. Do I still have the list of Pokemon? I was just gonna look through the last of it just to see. Just in case there's anything else I want to complain about with, like, a different fairy type or something. Oh, hey, here's another one. Here's another one. It's literally the same thing. And that computer analyze how much the flower to fairy ratio of this Pokemon. Pokemon found to be 8/10 flower, 2/10 fairy. Thank you, computer. It's why? Why? Why make a Pokemon with this many flowers on it if it's not going to be grass type? You know, flowers are plants, right? Like, I don't know what to say about this. Like, more than that, it's more flower than fairy. Are flowers alone fairy type now? Is that what this means? Have there been any flower Pokemon that were grass type since then? I'm gonna check. Okay, here we go. Look at this. Look, this is the grass type. This is a fairy type. Can you tell the difference? Can you tell the difference? Why? This is actually the only Pokemon with a flower on it that's been grass type since fairy type was added. The other two are these. And why did they do it again? Why did they do it again? This is a grass type. This is a grass type. There's not, like, I'm so mad. I'm not mad. Whatever. I'm a rage YouTuber now. I'm exaggerating how angry I am for views, for content. But, it does annoy me, because if you're trying to play the game, and you're like, okay, I'm fighting a Pokemon, what is this? Okay, they sent it out, it's literally 8 flowers and a small face. Time to use my... I'm trying to think, is there anything that would be bad? No, there's nothing that, like, would be... I mean, you use fire or whatever. Time to use my fire type attack, and then just as normal damage. If you use your poison type attack, then actually you wouldn't even notice. That would be the topic for my next video. Why the difference between fairy and grass type is confusing. Reason 1, they do this. Reason 2, both weak to poison. Video done. Okay. Yeah, this is really, it makes it difficult. Just like rock and ground type. Here's that video. Make sure to like and subscribe that video. If you also think that grass and fairy type is confusing, then also it I don't know. Makes the game harder to play. It's annoying. So you'll get it wrong, and then you maybe will remember, but. Also you're supposed to be like a little baby playing this game. You're supposed to play Pokemon at like 2 years old. See a flower and you tell your older sister, like, use the fire move. And then you do that. I don't know, at 2 years old you can do that, but that's how I first played Pokemon. So, yeah, it's a bad design. Even when there's a nerd argument to say that it's a fairy holding a flower. This one is more flower than fairies. So, yeah, it literally learns a move called Floral Healing. Wait a second. Floral Healing. It learns Floral Healing, which is boosted by grassy terrain. Is Petal Dance a fairy type move? I need to check after looking at that. Okay, no, it's still grass type. Why? Oh, they also taught Comfy and Florges Petal Dance? Wait, is Comfy in the grass egg group? I didn't even know there was a grass egg group, but it's... Oh, there's a whole new video about egg groups. Well, okay. The grass egg group. Let's look at the grass egg group, right? Okay, grass types grass. Yep, it's just grass. Yep, it's just grass. Comfy. Oh, in this and another. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's all grass. It's still all grass. Comfy is the only non-grass type in the grass egg group. Because it's a plant. Which means it should be grass type. Man, I should have been looking at egg groups this whole time. Which one was yeah, Florges can learn Petal Dance, the grass type move. Oh, it should be pretty good at Petal Dance because it's got all those petals on its body. It should get like same type attack bonus on Petal Dance, right? But it doesn't. Yeah, Florges is in the fairy egg group, which is like a bunch. Oh, here we go. This is fun. The fairy egg group. When was it added? The first set of egg groups, I think. Yeah, fairy's only in it. So like, if they had an egg group, yeah, this is. I'm not gonna say every Pokemon in here should be fairy type because then Blissey would be fairy type, and that's just a hellish world I don't want to live in. But You know, just any of these could be fairy. I mean, this one becomes fairy, so, you know, that one, sure. Pikachu probably shouldn't. Yeah, these are all just a bunch of, here's just a bunch of extra ideas for Pokemon that could be in it, like Frostlass. Like, come on, Frostlass? Maybe. I mean, Ice Ghost fits pretty well too, but of all the Pokemon that become Fairy type, only Mr. Mime and Ralts are not in this egg group. And then only Sylveon... Oh yeah, so only Sylveon, Klefki, Mr. Mime, and Ralts are Fairy types that aren't in it. I think, is what that's saying. There might be a few more. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why all those other Fairy types didn't get it in, because they weren't in the right egg group, clearly. Yeah, Fairy types, I mean... Wow. I don't know. Like and subscribe if you too think that Fairy is a bad type that needs to be removed from the game for making Bug type worse. Hit the bell if Fairy should be weak to Bug type, because Bug type deserves better justice for Bug type.